Hello and welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. I'm your guy, Halsey Schider, and just really excited for today's show. Many ways that I come across guests. I I have friends, obviously, in the industry. I have friends that connect me with the industry, and then, like most of us, I peruse social media and I try to find cool content. And Jess Burch, I came across on Instagram, flying helicopters and doing
Yeah.
cool things, working as a meteorologist for a news station in San Francisco. So I figured, you know what, maybe I can reach out and see if she'd be willing to come on the show. And I'm just so grateful that you said yes. So, Jess,
Absolutely.
welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. And of course, big shout out to Vertical Helicast for making this possible. Jess, how are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just finished my, morning show and now we're doing this. I feel like I did my hair and makeup today for this, not for my
I was,
job.
I appreciate that. Well, you look great. I appreciate it. I'm sure your media presence is way better than mine, so you're going to make this podcast way better. Um,
Hopefully.
with your media training, that's so cool. I've actually been really fascinated by kind of news and how it all
Hmm.
works. I actually flew for the news in
Cool.
yeah, I flew in San Antonio for a company called Heli Inc. that owns a
Okay.
lot of news helicopters, and I really enjoyed. I did the morning traffic with
Okay.
a photojournalist, and he would go live from the helicopter,
Yeah,
and occasionally would give me a shout out, so I kind of had my claim to fame.
I like that.
Uh,
See,
and
I want to
then
do that, but just with weather instead.
I think it would be super cool. There's like famous news personalities that are like famous for being. I think there's a guy in LA that was like a famous, helicopter news guy, and
I
I
need
think
to
people
figure this
dig that.
out. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, aviation and weather go hand in hand so much as is. I'm like, how can I like tie the knots and talk to the right people to make that happen?
Yeah, seriously, I think people would dig that. So that's
Absolutely.
super cool. I must say, I mean, obviously it's a helicopter podcast, but I'm super curious
Yeah.
about just how did you stumble into being a broadcaster, kind of from
Mhm.
your aviation career? I think that's really fascinating.
It's so funny because I look back and I realize like the entire time, like I said, aviation and weather go hand in hand. I started flying when I was 15. I was working on my private license in Las Vegas as a kid. I picked up an Army scholarship to Embry-Riddle out in Florida in Daytona Beach. And originally I was thinking, oh, I'm going airlines. Like when I picked up the scholarship, I deep down knew I was like, okay, there's definitely going to be Army aviation involved in my life. But throughout those 4 years at Riddle, I started realizing, okay, well, the National Guard is an option. And I switched my degree from aeronautical science to meteorology. And then I was like, okay, what do I do with meteorology? Do I work for the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center? And then I started an internship down in Florida at a news station there, and that was kind of where I started piecing this life that I have now together. I can do both, and honestly, the week I got my aviation slot for the Army, I also rescued a dog, and his name's Chopper. Like that's how passionate I was about what
That's
what I was
awesome.
about to embark on. So he's actually
That's
laying next to
awesome.
me right now. Chopper's
I
also a part
what
of the
kind of
podcast.
what kind of dog is Chopper?
He is a rescue black lab. And it was in
Oh,
between naming him Blackhawk and Chopper, so I feel like Chopper is the more like mellow route naming a dog.
totally. My my operations manager for my business just
Mm-hmm.
got a dog and named him Ranger, like Jet
Ah,
Ranger, Long
smart.
Ranger. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty good. His other dog was Rotor. Rotor, rest
Oh,
in peace.
that's a good
Um,
one.
and so now it's Ranger is in the house. My wife and I, our dog,
Mm-hmm.
who is no longer part of our family. We named
Sorry.
him Shiner after Shiner, Texas, because we rescued him down in Shiner. But I think
Love it.
for the next dog, I definitely want to go like the helicopter direction or some type of aviation. I think that's the way to go. I'm gonna pull deep from my memory bank because I'm a proud 1 year alumni of Embry-Riddle in Daytona
Okay.
Beach, and I took meteorology, and I
Okay.
enjoyed it. And my professor was, ironically enough, Doctor Snow. I think
Yeah,
is
Dr.
that
Snow. The
am I
man or the
right?
woman? The guy one
I,
or the girl one?
I was I was with the woman, and she was awesome.
Okay.
I had a great experience with, and I just always thought it was so funny because it was like, of course, the professor in meteorology, his last name
Has
is
the last
Snow.
name Snow. I think about that all the time on TV. I'm like, I messed up. I need to like legally change my last name to Snow or
Jess Thunderstorm.
That's a little pushing it.
Yeah, that's a little
That's,
weird.
but I have thought about that before. Yeah, Dr. Snow and Dr. Snow, they're married. He's the husband's very hippie, chill, relaxed, and she's very prim and proper. And I'm like, how on earth? But they both love weather, and I guess that's all it takes for true love. And I still have yet to figure that one out.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I did enjoy the class. I've always been fascinated with weather. Obviously, as you said, aviation and weather are like hand in
Hmm.
hand. And
Absolutely.
it I guess when I went to that class, my expectation was like, "Oh, this is gonna be easy." It's like weather, how hard can it be? And that was like, meteorology 100 or whatever, the
Hmm.
lowest level. And I remember like halfway through uh that class, I'm like, I have no idea what she's talking about. Like
It goes
this
by
is
fast.
like
Yeah.
this is way complicated. I mean, like weather and how it all works. And I
Hmm.
think it's probably kind of the reason why still to this day, I mean, it's hard to forecast, right? Weather is just so tricky.
It
Um,
is. It's real. I will say though, it's really impressive seeing the progression with technology. I mean, just within the past couple of years, I'm not sure how much you've heard, but like atmospheric rivers, that's the big talk of the town on the West Coast, and it's so cool seeing the NOAA, the hurricane hunters. They'll actually during their off season for the hurricanes come out and fly over those atmospheric rivers and drop zones, and they collect all this data that goes into the models that I use as a meteorologist to broadcast to people. So just seeing the like advancement just within the past couple of years that I've been in this industry and like seeing it so hands on, um, like yeah, of course it's a really dynamic discussion, but it's forecasting is pretty cool. I think it's really cool, and it helps us so much as pilots. It's ridiculous.
yeah, it's actually super important for pilots. I mean, so much of
Mm-hmm.
previous incidents, accidents are all because of unexpected, unforecasted weather. Weather changes quickly, and I
Yeah.
think being able to have an understanding of that is crucial to being able to make good decisions. I don't. I would say that like I'm like 50-50 on my weather knowledge. Like I feel
Okay.
like I know more than like most, but
Mm-hmm.
not enough. I'm always like, I just don't understand that. Like
Yeah.
El Nino is happening right now. What I know about that, it's like kind of bumming me
Mm-hmm.
out because the resort next to my house is not getting a ton of snow. We're getting a lot of rain, a lot of freezing rain. And so I don't like El Nino. But yeah, it's just crazy. And I guess you've probably been busy this week. I've been hearing on the news like
Oh
a
my
ton of
gosh.
rain in California.
I know. Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast not on the week of February 6th, well, we had the craziest week ever. It was back to back atmospheric rivers, and the area of low pressure that dropped down was actually one of the strongest that we've seen since 2010 here in the
That's
Bay
crazy.
Area. So, I mean, we saw 102-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We were dealing with,
Jeez.
I mean, LA is still dealing with crazy flooding. I talked about that all morning this morning. And so, yeah, I think that forecasting is just absolutely the most interesting. I think that's honestly why I switched from aeronautical science while I was at Riddle to weather. I was just enjoying those weather classes so much, the one you were talking about, like the 101. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, I already know I'm going to fly for the Army. Like, I might as well kind of like branch out and see what else instead of just flying for the airlines and flying for the Army, like, and deep down, yeah, of course, I think down the road I would still love to do airlines, but
I mean, it's really
I'm,
fascinating too, like being just the whole news thing, right? Like you're on TV, which is cool, or at least I think it's cool.
it's fun.
Um, people, and actually, I think meteorologists from a local news perspective actually play a really vital role. Like when I lived in
Hmm.
Texas, like it was really important to listen to Adam Caskey at KSAT. Like, hey, is there a tornado that's going to hit my house?
Yeah.
It's like being able to report that real time. I think is super cool, and I think just the experience, and I'm sure it's really challenging. Like, I would be really nervous. I get nervous doing a podcast that's not live. uh, let alone like broadcasting a live deal with a green
Mhm.
screen. Like, how long does that take to like figure that all out?
Well, a normal green screen, probably not that long, but CBS in the Bay Area, we just created the first ever virtual reality set. And it is the coolest technology I've ever seen. It's like this huge, like 360 world where you can walk through the bay and like the mountains can be around you, the clouds can be around you, and it's like super interactive. And so we've been taking that head on, and it makes forecasting a lot more fun for me because I feel like I'm like in it, instead of just here's a
Totally.
wall with your information, which you're always competing against your apps anyways. Let's be honest, I'm competing against my phone,
Of
and
course.
so how can I make it a lot more connected to the viewer? And I learned that skill when I was down in Florida actually, because I was doing an internship at a Florida news station where I saw people and the viewers really care about there's a hurricane coming. What do I do? Do I board my doors? Do I board the windows? Do I evacuate? What am I supposed to do? Because the National Hurricane Center only gives so much information. What do I do with the information, right? And I think that that's what I think about because I have that pilot brain where I'm like, what do I do with this information? Can I fly or can I not? Do I have to file VFR? Can I like file? Like you're thinking all these logistics, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, what about just the average person who has to get to work today from the East Bay? Are they going
Yeah,
to go across
seriously.
the Bay Bridge or are they working from home? Because that's still an option, kind of. So I think that I don't know. My mind is going a million different places whenever I see a forecast, and um, yeah, yeah,
I think it's really cool. Next time in the Bay Area, I'm gonna have to look you up. Maybe I can twist your arm for a tour of the studio. I've Even
easy.
though I flew for the news, I never actually got to go in. They offered, I
Oh,
just couldn't make it work. But I've always heard like the studios, like they feel so big on TV, but I guess in person, like things are more compact. I guess I've
yeah,
heard that. Is that
yeah.
kind of the sense?
The traditional studios, yeah. Like I said, that virtual reality set is this huge green, like dome almost, like half dome. So it's
That's
pretty
so
big
funny.
and interactive. But I'll definitely have to send some photos so you could share that. It's
Yeah.
cool. I love what I do. Gosh, it's so fun. It's a blast.
Yeah, and I think like you said, I think it's a nice. It's very aviation centric. In fact, I
Mm-hmm.
think the local guy here in Portland, he always talks about flying. I think he's a recreational, private pilot for years. But I think it kind of goes hand in hand. So similar to me, it sounds like you started flying at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
15, and something that we've talked about on the podcast before is like this idea of first generation versus like second generation or third generation pilots.
Okay.
Are you a first gener, or do you have other family members that have kind of helped paved the way for this passion?
I am proud to say I am a first jetter. I
Nice.
truly I am. I mean, I think that my family traveled a bunch when we were kids, and I was just like, how can I keep this going for free 99? And I'm like, well, become a pilot. And I've never had a fear of aviation. I've never had a fear of heights. So my, what is it called? Your intro flight, your demo flight, the first one you've ever do. Oh, I was hooked.
I know.
And then it
It's
turned summer in Las Vegas, and I actually started my lessons. And then the heat, the thermal, and but oh my gosh, it was the most like turbulent experience of my life flying in Las Vegas as a private pilot,
so
or working for it.
I worked for Maverick helicopters
I saw
in
something.
Vegas.
Oh my gosh, yes!
And I flew tours there
Wow,
for a couple years, so I love Vegas. I
how
never
was
thought I would
that?
say oh, it was amazing. I First off, I never thought I would love living in Vegas, and you
Mm-hmm.
being from there can attest, like, at least my opinion is I think Vegas is a super cool city.
It's rad.
There's a ton of pride, like, people are proud
Mm-hmm.
to be locals. Um, yes, there's the Strip, and that's part of Vegas, but there's so much more. We lived near Henderson Executive, so, kind of south,
That's
and
where
we
I
had a
first started flying.
yeah, Hendo. So we had great time. But one of the things in like April, May, it would get super windy and
Mm-hmm.
hot, and we would be flying out to the canyon, and there would be several points where we're flying pretty low, crossing ridge lines, and then of course when we cross into the canyon, we're pretty low, and then it drops out, and it's like 5,000 feet, and the winds are crazy. I can say that I've never had turbulence that bad in my life. Like, for the
It's
month of May,
memorable.
April, May, I was, like, with dread every day, like, "Oh my god," like,
Mm-hmm.
not only does it kind of terrify me because I don't love turbulence, but
Yeah.
passengers are gonna get sick, it's hot, they're gonna be terrified. So I didn't like that aspect of flying in Las Vegas because
Mhm.
the turbulence. And I've actually had a couple commercial flights coming in, like over the dam and flying over Fortification Hill, I think it's called,
Yeah.
where even the plane gets rocked. The big commercial plane coming into the international. So I could
Yeah.
definitely see it being a bumpy place to learn.
No, it totally was. I think the only other time, and flying the Blackhawk now, that thing is a beast. But I will say, worst turbulence in my life next to flying in Vegas is definitely up in Tahoe in the winter time, just with all those mountain ridges left and right, and you're kind of going in and out, and dual engine will only get you so far and so fast, but that thing can still rock. So
Yeah, that
yeah.
would be, I can only imagine. So you start at 15, first
Mhm.
gener. I'm a first generation pilot as well. I always joke
Awesome.
like my dad was like a needs like 4 or 5 Bloody Marys to get on an airplane, type of guy. It's like
Okay.
aviation's not in my blood. And
Mhm.
admittedly, I don't love heights actually. I'm fine when I'm in an aircraft, but like
Mhm.
put me on like a cliff, a tall
Different
building, I
deal.
kind of like
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of like don't love that, but aviation heights never bothered me.
Mhm.
But being a first generation aviator, I think is awesome. I think it's really cool, but I think it presents challenges. And so I'm just kind of curious to hear some of like at the age of 15, how did you kind of navigate this idea of starting to learn how to fly? And then it sounds like you got a scholarship for the Army ROTC at Embry-Riddle. What was
Yeah.
that whole process like? And for some of our listeners out there that might be
Yeah.
kind of transitioning on that path, what 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 would be the advice that you give them?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? Well, I will start off by saying, I had the love for it that kind of drove me to each place in my life. But when it came to the scholarship part, so you can go Navy ROTC, Army ROTC, Air Force ROTC, but the Air Force and the Navy, they make you go active duty if you want to go aviation after college. And I found that out real fast, and I felt like that was my loophole. And I'm like, oh, it's not as sexy to be an Army pilot as it is, to be a Top Gun pilot in the Navy. Like, of course I'd rather be doing that. Are you kidding me? But I live a civilian life right now, and I find that far more attractive than being told where to live, what to do, everything. And you and I talked about this right before we started the podcast, the risk that comes with the military and your career and what they want you to do. And I think that for me, I knew that I kind of, oh gosh, how do I word this? I knew that I wanted my freedom, but I still wanted to serve. And so I found out that the Army ROTC scholarship lets you go National Guard or Reserve after college, and you get the exact same scholarship. You get the exact same flight school dates. You get everything the same. You actually get pushed through flight school faster for the Army if you are National Guard because your state's
Really?
paying for you to be there. So
Loophole.
they're like, hurry up, hurry up. Versus all the active duty ones kind of linger and a little bit like, they're always delayed a bit in their training. Um, Point of me saying all that was I said, okay, you know what? I'm 18. I want to go to Embry Riddle. It's crazy expensive. I'm going to go Army. And man, am I so grateful I did. The challenges that I experienced while going through it mostly had to do with being one of the only females. Like I was the only female in my graduating class that commissioned into the Army. So there was that, where I'm just like looking around. I'm like, I still can't get my nails done with any of these people. And like, what else? I going to flight school, same thing. I was one of two girls in my flight school class. Um, and so that was a challenge a bit, but um,
I mean, it is
it,
interesting because you've chosen aviation, which is male dominated, and
mm-hmm,
then on top of that, you chose Army aviation,
mm-hmm.
which is arguably probably the most male dominated, and
On top of going to Embry Riddle, which is
on
also a
top,
male dominated.
which is all dudes. It's all
Yeah.
dudes plus Jess. But yeah, I mean, it's that. How did you? Because I'm hoping that I have some female listeners, and I hope
Oh
that
my
we can
God.
help inspire kind of the next generation of females to get involved. Because as we talked about before the show, the
Mm-hmm.
representation for women in aviation, it's probably not a lack of girls not wanting to do it. It's probably a combination of they don't know that they can do it, and B, it's a lot of dudes doing it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like they can't picture themselves, I guess. I don't know, but hopefully you can inspire or we can help inspire. What were some of like the how did you kind of navigate that? I mean, going to college, going through ROTC, being in a flying community,
Yeah.
being one of the only females. What was that like?
Lonely. Lonely, but I think that think back to your first think back to your first solo flight, right? Like the feeling that you have when you're in it by yourself and you're like, I'm doing it. Like yeah, like there's no one else really supporting me. Yeah, they're on the ground, like but they're like far away. Like it's me up here by myself. And you do your first landing and you're like, yes, I did it. Like gotta go do two more. It's kind of that same feeling, but then to go past that, the confidence, like the humility, but the confidence that you have after doing that, you're like, yeah, I know I could do it, and I could keep doing it. That's kind of how I like associate it to being like a woman in aviation. It's like kind of it's isolating, it's a little lonely, but like you look around and you're like, I'm just capable. Just because I was born a chick doesn't mean that I'm less capable, and um it's kind of beautiful when you start building that network in that community because now I have a whole bunch of friends that are women in aviation, but they're just so much more outsourced. Like I have girls that I talk to up in Tahoe. I have girls that I talk to across the states in Vermont, and like we're such close aviation community. We are such a close aviation community, but it's not as big as necessarily like it's not in your face. Like I wish I would have had that in flight school. I think that my experience might have been a little bit more different, but I can't change that. So I'm grateful
Yeah.
for the men that were my advocates through some of the really hard experiences that I had. I didn't have the best flight instructors that, said nasty things and didn't really want me to be there because they grew up in a different generation. And so
Sure.
for the men who always stood up for me, I'm so grateful for them because that's kind of what got me through a lot of harder times.
I think it is a two-way street. And I think you're right. I think there's an older breed, and
Breed.
you know, it's kind of just the way that they grew up. So like, do you hate
Yeah.
those people for that? It's like, they're just kind of part of their upbringing. But I do think that we're living in a time where it's the tides are changing, and when it comes to aviation, I kind of have an opinion that women are we need more women because it would probably be safer if we have more women in aviation. I had the opportunity. My first flight instructor, private to commercial, was a gal, and she was great. I mean, she was thorough. She was detail oriented. Uh, the ego seems to be a little less too on the female side, which I think is really important when you're learning how to fly. I remember
Mhm.
having female students, and it was always just a little bit easier because they weren't like fighting their egos. Like it's okay
Yeah.
that you can't hover in the first hour, like it's not possible. And girls like seem to have that understanding, whereas like a guy's like, oh, I should be able to hover. I'm awesome at everything. So it's like it's definitely like a different
Oh,
dynamic, and
I saw that at flight school all the time.
it's so
You're
funny. Like, what
right.
do people think? Like, they get in the helicopter and like
And
they're so
it's not
upset.
black and white, but yeah, you're right. I did see that a little bit. I will say this too, now that I'm thinking about it, there's so many, I'm just gonna plug this right away. There's so many women in aviation organizations too that I was totally just thinking about. I'm like, why do I even know these girls that fly? And I'm like, oh, duh, it's because the 99s, it's because women in aviation, it's all these organizations where I'm like, okay, if I was a young girl and I was kind of like lost in how I wanted to get to those spots, that's how I would do it. Um, and back to your point real fast too. My first flight instructor, she is, well, was at the time the youngest dual rated CFII. And
Wow.
so and oh my gosh, she was just such a badass. Like she did
Seriously.
it all. Benita Hayes, if you're ever listening, like seriously, I am still so inspired by you. Um,
That's so cool.
it's so wicked cool. And what was crazy was I was so passionate about planes at the time when I was young. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be just an airline pilot, blah blah blah. She's like, nah, girl, helicopters is where it's at. And I'm like, whatever. And come to find out, years down the road, I now fly Blackhawks, and I agree with her. I would way rather
It's
fly a
so
hawk.
cool.
Yeah, they're
Well,
fun.
I want to hear all about going to flight school and learning how to fly the
Yeah.
Blackhawk. Real fast, we're just going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Bell is proud to sponsor Vertical Helicasts and their vision to hold meaningful mission, safety, and best practice conversations in the helicopter industry. The lessons learned from these conversations will undoubtedly shape the future of both new and veteran helicopter operators.
All right. Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks for everyone who listens to the Helicopter Podcast. So lucky to have Jess Burch on the show today. Before the break, you kind of started to tease, and you've talked about it a couple of times already, that you fly
Mm-hmm.
Blackhawks,
Yeah.
um, and that's super cool. First off, I've unfortunately never been in a Blackhawk. I'm actually part of a Blackhawk sale right now for the first time. I'm helping sell
Oh, snap.
three A plus models, UH-60 A pluses. So I'm learning. It's it's been a steep learning curve to kind of understand the Blackhawk. And
Mhm.
luckily, I have some really good friends that have a lot of 60 time and have helped me
Cool.
navigate that. But so you're in the ROTC program
Yeah.
real fast. Before we get into your flight school portion, I did the Navy ROTC in
Mhm.
at Riddle, and it was hard, like getting up early and doing the PT, and then having to do other ROTC commitments. Was that kind of a similar experience in the Army ROTC? I mean, 4 years of that. It's like
Yeah.
that's hard.
4 years prepped me for now. I mean, okay, what I, you're like, work in the military, you go to your classes right away. You're trying to juggle a social life with a sorority mixed with, just trying to have friends, and then you're also having to do FTXs on the weekend, like field training exercises on
Oh
the
yeah, the
weekend and the
FTXs in the
weekdays, and
Ocala National Forest.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I look back and I'm like, did I ever sleep? And then I look at my life now. I'm like, oh, that's just not a part of my life. You just don't sleep. And the reason why I say that is because now I'm the morning meteorologist for CBS here in the Bay Area. I wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I go straight to work. I get done at noon, and then half the time I have to go out to Sacramento sometimes and go fly for the National Guard. And once again, I'm trying to balance social life and sleep and everything. So I think really ROTC prepped me for. Did I just call it ROTC? Ew. ROTC prepped me for what was to come in my life, and I am grateful for it because I needed that at that time in my life.
You have to get up at 2:30.
That's the only thing you took from that?
That's absurd.
Yes, I do. I do. It's
Like
crazy.
Monday through Friday, you're getting up at 2:30.
Heck yeah, I am. So does
Oh
Chopper.
my,
I
that's
take Chopper on a
cool.
nice little walk
Chop
around the neighborhood.
Chopper's up at poor Chopper. Chopper's like,
No, he
hey,
hates
your
me.
your life is really bothering my life.
He's like, why did you rescue me?
Yeah, why can't I have someone else? I don't
He
think he
loves
thinks
me.
that. What? That's insane. Yeah,
Mhm.
but you're right. I mean, that's a cool part of growing up, right? I think that whether your college experience is with the ROTC or just a busy class load of more of a traditional experience, that's
Yeah.
where you start to kind of learn, like, hey, life is about prioritizing and having a calendar and trying to,
Oh yeah.
figure out how to organize all the aspects of your life, and that's cool that you took that away from that experience. So you finish college. Is it kind
Mhm.
of you finish college and go straight? Did you fly airplanes while at Riddle? You went through that training as well,
Nah,
or not?
because I ended up switching degrees to meteorology pretty fast, and I told myself, like I'll knock out the rest of my ratings down the road as add-ons after the Army gets me my commercial, you know. So I was kind of
Totally.
like playing the slow but steady route and the financially smart route because I don't have like I can't rely on my parents. I don't really have that like financial security that a lot of people are fortunate to have, and so really it was just kind of me on my own, and I was really gentle with how I went my aviation career. Um, so yeah, I mean after college, well actually during college, I realized real fast I wanted to do National Guard. I crazy story actually. I was trying to figure out which state I wanted to go to, which guard unit I wanted to join. And one day I was just scrolling through Facebook and I stumbled upon this video of these painted, like pink painted Blackhawks out in California, picking up water and dumping them in the smoke on like wildfires. And I'm like, first off, you guys paint them pink? What the heck? And I had no idea why. And second off, I'm like, that looks sick. That's the type of mission that I was thinking. Like that'd be really cool, meaningful. I wasn't even from California, and the moment I watched that video, I saved it and I instantly started calling people left and right. Who's the recruiter? How do I find them? Captain Boatwright was the guy that I called, and oh my gosh, he just totally made my world what it is today. He got me out here. I got a flight board. I passed the flight board. I knew I was going aviation before any of those active duty guys that I commissioned with even knew what they were going to do in their careers. So it felt very like job secure. And then
Awesome.
at that point, I was like, it's game on to find a civilian job. So that's when I started searching left and right for a news job out here.
That's cool. So what is the training like? I think you don't obviously start in the Blackhawk. Do you start in a fixed wing and then go into like a Jet Ranger, like the OH-58, and then get
Um,
into how does that
by the
all play out?
by the time I was there, they were getting rid of the older single engine, and they put me into a Lakota. So my first
Oh, you're
aircraft was a Lakota, um, which kind of felt like cheating.
It
Because like
is.
the thing freaking flies itself if you really want it to. I'm like, yeah, I'm a helicopter pilot. I'm like, but the thing kind of like does all the work, you know. There's little things, you know. You have to be careful with the mast moment. You have to be careful with like certain maneuvers. Um, I had some crazy experiences learning auto rotations in that thing because you're not legally allowed to put them to the ground. But my instructor was like, screw it anyways, and put it to the ground and smoked the tail on our first auto. So I was like scared of
Oops.
auto rotation, but it's the
Oh
Army.
no.
So sure enough, they're like, the next day you're back in. And I'm like, okay, now I don't want to be in it. But yeah, I started in the Lakota. That was the majority of the training in Army Flight School, actually, I would say. And then your last, like, I don't remember the exact amount of months, but you get like a 40 something plus hours in the Hawk, and then you're going.
That's crazy. Yeah, I can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine, I going the civilian route, learning an R-22. I don't think
Oh
it
my
could be
God.
more opposite than a
Mm-mm.
Lakota. And there's things about the R-22 that I love. I think that, going into the civilian world, there's a lot of cool takeaways of
Yeah.
flying an R-22. And I've had the privilege of flying with former 60 pilots that are transitioning into the civilian world. And I think it's better to go from R-22 to like Blackhawk,
Okay.
not necessarily the other way around. I think
I
once
can
you've
see that.
experienced like a 60, like one of the most amazing helicopter platforms, to go into like an R-44 or an R-22 is like just downright scary, I think, for a lot of those individuals.
I can
Um,
imagine that.
and
Yeah.
it's definitely a hurdle in the beginning, but I've they all kind of figure it out. But so you get the training time. Is there
Hmm.
parts of Army flight school that you found more challenging than other parts, or was it fairly kind of straightforward and easy for you?
Um, there were certain parts that were pretty easy because I was flying beforehand too, you know? Like learning charts, aviation charts. I was like sleeping in those classes, like, I got this. I thought that I could sleep through the meteorology class, and then sure enough I missed like two questions on the test. I'm like, I'm an imbecile. I'm an imbecile. And then it was like
Like,
the direction of the wind. It was like, okay, if this pressure system's moving in this way or whatever. And I just like read the question wrong. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should start listening. And then honestly, it was the aerodynamics of helicopters where I was like, what do you mean the downwash going vertical? I was dumbfounded. I mean, it's way different than planes, and I thought that I knew I thought I knew aerodynamics really well, and it was I learning to fly with a rotor, and I think that that's where it got really fun though. Is it challenging? Yeah, absolutely. Is learning EPs and limits challenging for a helicopter? Absolutely. Um, but I think that if anybody loves aviation, they find that challenge is nothing but excitement. I mean, I know a lot of people who don't like reading in aviation, but they love reading the, like operational handbook, or like they love getting into the nitty gritty because it's something that we geek out over. And it's sometimes hard for me to explain to people who don't love aviation how geeky I can get about it, because I'm like, do you want me to explain this like in layman's terms, or do you want me to like actually talk about it? Because as a
totally.
meteorologist, same thing. I mean, I could talk about weather the way that meteorologists talk about them, or I could talk about it the same way that I would on TV. Like, oh, it's the light jacket today. And like, that's all you really need.
Yeah,
So like that's how I feel with aviation.
I know that the Army aviation, and I've heard this from a lot of my friends that have come into the civilian world after going in the Army, that like EPs, like you're just talking about, is like it's a big thing. And obviously, emergency procedures are important in all helicopter flying, but it seems like the Army specifically puts a huge emphasis on like really memorizing and knowing like step by step like what to do.
I think
Was
that,
that your impression of like learning EPs, or is it a little more
yeah.
fluid?
No, I would say yes, but I think there's a purpose, and mm, I feel like it's because maybe the mission, like there's with Army aviation, different from an air assault unit, but like having those memorized, I get the importance of it because you're doing so many different things up front. Like I was just doing a hoisting mission Thursday, last Saturday, so a couple days ago, and I don't. While I'm up front and while there's people in the back doing hoisting while I'm holding a hover at a certain altitude, like I've I feel like it's the most important thing for me to have those memorized and like just scripted in my head, because I don't really have time as I'm holding this. If something were to happen, for me to pull something out and read through a checklist, I feel like it's different. And sometimes I talk to my Embry Riddle friends that are in the airlines, and you know, they have. I listen to them talk about ETOPS and all this stuff as they're flying over the ocean, and I'm like, wow, like it just seems like you have a different amount of time than like I do in certain missions to act on these emergency procedures, you know? And so yeah, I think that like it makes sense why the army kind of just shoves it down your head, but I don't know. It's like permanently in my brain now.
Yeah, it's like it just, hey, this is what you need to know, and I agree with that. And
Hmm.
yeah, the fixed wing world, yeah, I mean, the inconvenience of an emergency for them is, they have to put away their food and they have to set down their newspaper and their
So me.
coffee. We don't have the luxury, right? The helicopter, usually when it decides that it's going to have a bad day, things can
I
happen.
rotate.
Things can happen really quick, and so yeah, you
Yeah.
have to have that, and you have to rely on that training. So you have your full-time, job, obviously,
Yeah.
doing the news and meteorology, uh, but you have a commitment still, so you're still active in the guard.
I am. Yeah. So I signed a 6-year contract with the Army. It was right around the time when they were switching from a 6-year to a 10-year, like the Navy and the Air Force does. And so my flight school class was actually split 50-50 with 6-year contracts and 10 years. And it was so awkward because it would get kind of clicky. It's like, ooh, you have 10 years. Like,
You're a
sorry.
tenor.
Yeah, you're a tenor, which is funny because like deep down in my heart, I'm like, I'm probably going to do 10 anyway. But it's nice having the option. And it was so awesome because, like I said, I got the exact same scholarship that all my active duty friends did. And I'm living this life where I get to pick how much money I want to make because I got to pick the career that I wanted. And I have all this freedom of where to live and what to do. And I'm a very big advocate for not only just Army aviation or aviation in general, but specifically the Guard. It's pretty cush.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of buddies that were active, then they're in the guard now. I got some buddies that are in the guard for the Air Force, and they're flying like the big heavy airplanes, and yeah, like what they're doing is real cush, and it's pretty cool. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far with Jess. I know that I sure am. During the recording of this, we just had a couple technical difficulties, so we had to kind of ninja some things around. So we're going to get back into the episode after that sponsor call, and the conversation is going to shift a little bit. Her audio is going to also sound just a little bit different, but nonetheless, a great conversation with Jess. So grateful to have her on the show, especially for Women in Aviation Week. So how cool is that? Again, enjoy the second half of the conversation. Thanks so much.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
I mean, yeah, as we talked about with the atmospheric river, and that's a real term, by the way. That's not like a made up
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah. Us meteorologists deemed it.
that.
Yeah,
And
it is.
I feel like the polar vortex is kind of like a new. Is that a
Yeah.
new term?
Yeah. Bomb cyclone, polar vortex, atmospheric rivers. It's as we get more advanced with technology and just understanding weather patterns, it's really fascinating that these have been actually occurring for a while and we just never really deemed a name for it because we didn't realize the patterns, right? Same with El Nino and La Nina. Like we actually do see a difference throughout the states during certain seasons or every 4 years when an event happens. But
Yeah, it's
um,
crazy.
yeah.
So right now, like with all the flooding that's going on, like what would be like a typical mission in your area that they may deploy your guard unit?
Well, I mean, we have hoisting capabilities, and so I've seen really amazing videos come out of my unit alone of our crew chiefs in the back and the medics in the back, assisting the pilots up front as they're going over places where people may be stuck or in flooded areas where there's no way of getting out. And that's what I love about our unit, honestly, is the fact that we do have hoisting capabilities. We could go up and do search and rescue missions. SARs are really popular for our unit, and having that, especially as a deployable unit where you go overseas, I just think that it's an important asset. And medevac is such an amazing, um, mission, because there's air assault as well. We have an air assault unit down in Southern California, and they have a way different lifestyle. It's a lot more structured in the Army. We had to do it at flight school, but I mean, the moment I got out of flight school, I dropped all my air assault information and knowledge, and it's really structured. You're going to be at this point at this time. You're going to check here at this point. You're going to do this at this time, and you have to like get to the. And then everything changes, of course, the day of. Versus medevac, it's I got a 9 line. The aircraft was already prepped earlier this morning. You can run out to the aircraft, and it's go time. But that means on the backside, it's a lot more of a calm community too. It's just different.
Yeah, I mean, it seems awesome and really fun flying, cool missions, serving. I think anyone that is willing to serve is, I think, incredible. So thank you for that, obviously. How many years are you into your 6 years now?
I graduated flight school in 2021, and it's a 6-year contract.
Okay.
I don't want to do the math.
Well,
I'll be 30 years old when I'm out.
Okay. Yeah. You and I, we're pilots, so we definitely don't want to do math.
That's not
we'll stay away.
I just don't want to think about it.
I can't. I'm horrible at math. Everyone's always like, oh, you must be so good at physics or math. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea. Definitely not. So you have some years left of fun flying missions, doing cool things. You have what seems to be a really cool career outside of flying. Do you have thoughts about what you want to do after your time in the military?
That's the thing, is I'm going to have that, itch for aviation. If I'm not doing it, at least part-time. And so I'm going to have to do something. I'm not a CFI. I don't really know if I want to teach necessarily. There's a piece of my heart that's like, well, you should just, when you're done with the news down the road, maybe switch to airlines. And that's kind of a hard thing too, because it's like, well, do I jump now or do I like wait a while? And what's best for my lifestyle? I really want to be present and be, there. And so sometimes if you're a regional airline pilot, it's easier than if you're a line pilot, you can make it home, versus if you're, I don't know. There's just so much to think about. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. That's like my true issue. Everyone's like, I look up to you. I'm like, how? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm having fun right now, but yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to live in the now and enjoy what you're doing, but I think it's only responsible to kind of try our best to kind of plan. And I don't know about you, but it seems like anytime I plan anything too seriously, things always change, right? You have to kind of have this layer of flexibility, but it works out. Like, I've been so lucky. I've just kind of zigzagged through life of, okay, I think I'm going to do it this way, but then it goes this way.
Yeah.
And the fact that it went that way is actually like way better. So it's just, kind of being flexible and going with the flow. You have a point. I mean, starting airlines sooner than later would be maybe advantageous, so you can kind of get through all the not so fun schedule, the regionals while you're still under 30. But there's a lot of people that start the career at 30 or 30 plus, and have a long airline career. Plus, I would say, I think doing the news is fun. I would imagine the 2:30 wake up. That's a doozy. I don't know if I get up early. I'm an early riser. I'm a 5 a.m. guy, Monday through Friday, usually 5:30 or 6 on the weekends. It's just kind of my natural rhythm. Mm-hmm. But like 2:30, that's like, that's not even human.
No, I know. It really does impact my social life too. I've noticed that since moving here. On top of balancing an aviation career and studying for it, because keep in mind, you have to stay in the books in aviation always, especially in Army aviation, and doing that on top of actually having that career, on top of being the best meteorologist I could possibly be for the Bay Area at such a young age, it's a lot of pressure. And then I, want to sleep, but I can't because I want to have friends. Like, I'm over here like, what am I supposed to do? And so, I think I'm hard on myself, but I also have found a lot of avenues to kind of stay really focused and really sharp. And honestly, I live off my Google calendars because that's the only thing. That's my brain, especially at 2 a.m. in the morning when I'm like, what am I supposed to do today? Oh crap, I have to go fly.
I have something to do today. Yeah. Well, obviously you don't lack drive. So that's, that's half the battle, mm-hmm. and I think it seems like you're a type of person that's going to, find the right opportunity and not take advantage in a bad way, but, utilize it to, do what you want to do. And I think that's neat. And yeah, you have a lot of, you don't seem old enough actually to have all the experiences that you have, which I think is really neat. I mean, I think that
I've doubled them up on top of each other.
yeah, you're really stacking. You're really stacking yourself, but I think it's quite cool. It seems like I don't know how some of your opportunities have come up. I did notice on like Instagram with the Blue Angels. I'm not sure if that was like through the news, but that's pretty freaking cool. What did you actually like fly with the Blue Angels?
Yes. Did I touch the controls? No, because they won't let you.
Yeah.
But I did fly with the Blue Angels last October, actually, for Fleet Week here in San Francisco. And it's so wild to think that I joined the Army, and it's through joining the Army that got me to fly with the Blue Angels. And the weird avenue of how that worked was because I did ROTC, I went Army Aviation, I went National Guard. It allowed me to have a civilian job. My civilian job led me to working for a beautiful news station here in the Bay Area. And CBS sponsors Fleet Week. And when they were trying to figure out who's going to do the media ride this year, they're like, that girl. And I was like, yes, like absolutely. It was the coolest experience ever. I went Mach 1. Can't do that in a Hawk. I did barrel rolls. I did flips. We went over the Pacific Ocean, and it was really cool. We did all the maneuvers they do during the air show. And what I didn't realize is like how big they are with the community. Like how much they just care. They're there just to connect with the community. And I thought that's the coolest part of the whole thing. I always thought it was just for the cool air show part. And I'm like, wait, they actually like go out and like talk to the people, and they're all about connection and inspiring people to go into the military potentially. And I'm like, bruh, I've been trying to do that this whole time. Like, I love them. They're so cool. Go Navy, beat Army.
And I think actually, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure right now their CO is a female.
Yeah, she was there this year. It was so amazing. Oh my gosh, I saw her. I didn't get to talk to her one-on-one, but I saw her connect with some of the community actually at this one event that I was at. Oh, she's so humble. She's so cool. I think that, there's Mace Curran. I'm not sure if you've heard of her. She's a female Thunderbird pilot. She's a really big.
I have. Yeah, I've definitely seen videos with her. I mean, I think aviation people and non-aviation people were gravitated towards fighter jets, obviously, because they're awesome. But also, it's like, I don't know, there's just something kind of inspiring about them and the ingenuity of humans that invented them and then the humans that fly them. I mean, even during COVID, I don't know if you remember, but like in the midst of the shutdown, like the government was like, hey, let's just go send the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels to go fly over a bunch of cities.
For morale. Morale, that's really what it is. Now, the only thing is for helicopters, I feel like if Aaron Fitzgerald was doing that same thing over my city, I'd be like, screw the fighters. I want to go do that. Because this man, I'm not sure if people know, of course they know him. You did a podcast with him. Yeah. He's doing flips in freaking Red Bull helicopters. Like, how?
It's crazy.
How?
It's the funny part is what I learned on that episode with Aaron is people have been testing the limits of helicopters and doing aerobatics in helicopters for like a really long time, which I found, super fascinating, super crazy. I'm actually in the works right now of doing, trying to plan something where I can actually go on location with Aaron. He suggested Fort Lauderdale. I guess that's a cool air show. And actually go and fly and do well, I'm not going to do the aerobatics, but sit there in the helicopter.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that would be
living my dream, I guess.
It'd be super awesome. I'm sure you could convince the news to get you on the Red Bull helicopter. I'm sure Aaron comes and does air shows up in San Fran. I would have to imagine.
I'll pull some strings one day.
I would definitely.
Seriously though, I mean, like I was doing a night vision mission the other night with MVGs on, and we were doing like our limits for the helicopter, 30 degree this, 30 whatever. And I'm like, oh God, this is scary. Like the helicopter might flip. And then he's over here just like, yeah, I want the helicopter to flip. What do you mean?
He's in the 105 just doing crazy stuff. The Germans built some nutso stuff.
True.
And I thought it was like heavily modified. And, through the course of that episode, kind of learning about like, it's really just essentially,
basic.
Off the factory line 105, and they're just built like tanks.
Cool.
is pretty cool. And I think it's fun because I think people, even a guy, I do ski patrol on the weekends. I'm a volunteer ski patroller. Shout out to the NSP. And there was a guy that was talking to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, you're in helicopter stuff, right?" He's like, "Can helicopters go upside down?" Like my friends and I were debating this the other night. I'm like, "Funny you should ask. I just did this podcast and I showed him Aaron's video of
It's
doing
next level.
doing all the crazy stuff." So I'm hoping I can get up there. There's also the Red Bull. One of the Red Bull airplane pilots is a guy named Kirby Chambliss, and he's like a helicopter nut now. He just bought a 44. He's like loves flying helicopters, and I got to kind of help him a little bit in sourcing and understanding, the process of buying a helicopter. So I'm hoping I can also get my way into his airplane, because
That'd be cool.
I've never done aerobatics in a helicopter or in an airplane. So I think like both would be a super cool opportunity.
Amazing. Absolutely.
Yep. You gotta, I guess that's the cool thing about the podcast is it's given me some opportunity to go and do some cool things. And, I think it would be fun sometime to come and see what you're doing at the Guard. We're always looking for fun content pieces. So I'm really excited. I'm really grateful that you joined us today. Again, I think it's important. I think the cool thing with social media, there's some downsides, but I think a lot of the positive is that it's showing people like you can go and kind of do whatever you want to do in life.
Absolutely. I think that there's so much beauty to social media. I think it's an untouched source when it comes to inspiration. And I think that it honestly, it sounds weird, but it motivates me. Like I see my friends doing wild things and I'm like, I want to beat that. Like I want to do something cooler. Or I want to do it with them, or I want to engage, or I want to find that spot that they did this thing at, or, you just have to pick good content for your feed and suddenly it's what you make it,
Yeah, it's crazy. Have you found like people will reach out to you and kind of ask how to get into the career now that you have influence just because you're on the news, but also you have a lot of followers, like 130,000 followers. Mm-hmm. I have like 1,500 and people message me all the time. So I can imagine you probably get a lot of messages and hopefully you're able to kind of inspire that next generation.
So many people are so curious about Army aviation, and it excites me so much that my little bits of my career that I do share, that's all it takes for them to go, how? What can I do? Or better yet, I didn't know that your unit could do that. I want my unit to do that. I'm going to talk to my commander about this thing or whatever. And it's like, I get it. The Army is very careful about like what we can and can't put out there. But I think that the little pieces that I do, whether it's just me pre-flighting, it does inspire young girls to go, what? She's like, she could do that? And then also do this other job? Like, does she sleep?
What?
And I'm like, no. But at the same time, like, you could do this too.
How do you do this? I just never sleep.
Well, the other thing too is like I always want people to know that like I created this life for myself, but I created it with nothing in my name initially. It was an Army scholarship that got me started. I didn't have money to go to Riddle. I didn't have money to become but a pilot in general, let alone like have the dream of wanting to do airlines one day. And so the Army really helped me get to where I am today, and I'm so grateful for it. And it's kind of my way of feeling like I'm giving back. Like, look at all these amazing things. We have struggles with retention. Here's how maybe we can shine cool lights on cool things that we do. Because we are
totally. And I think the financial aspect's a huge hurdle for so many people. Guys and gals, it's super expensive to get into this. And so again, especially if like you're like us and being a first generation pilot, you may not even understand that there's options out there to go in the military or other scholarships that might be available. I know like a lot of the female oriented aviation groups have scholarships that they award. So even if you're not so interested in going the Army route or the military route, you can find ways to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like, you've had to work super hard to get where you're at. Right. Like, I think that we also live in a bit of a society where it's like people just might see what you're doing and like, oh, that's lucky. And there's really not much luck about it. Right. It's about positioning yourself to receive that good fortune and that luck.
I would say one thing about being in the news, though, is you get people's opinions of you every single day of your life.
Ugh.
Every single day, I get someone saying something about how I look, how I talk, how I act, whatever. And it's like, oh gosh, I just don't have time to care about that. Like, if you're interested and you want to be inspired, like, let's chat. If you want to just be a nasty person sharing your opinion, there's a reason why I have my comments turned off on my Instagram. I just don't care to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's just people. That's the negative side of social media is that, people feel emboldened to say really hurtful things to people for what? It's like for really no reason. Obviously, I think it's more of them, right? It's kind of a more of them problem than it is the individuals putting yourself out there. Because I think, right, when you put yourself out there and you're kind of a public figure, that's kind of goes with that territory, and it's just the sad part. But the good news of social media is I can't help but think that you're inspiring a new generation to do things. So thank you for what you're putting out there.
For sure.
I definitely gonna, if I'm ever in San Francisco, I had a 407 purchase out of Santa Rosa last year, and we had to do, of course, an extended test flight, really make sure the aircraft's good.
Okay.
So that included flying into San Francisco, flying over the Golden Gate, flying over Alcatraz. So I've actually never been in San Francisco. I've only flown over it because I stayed in Santa Rosa.
That Bay tour is the most gorgeous flying I've ever done in the States.
It's so cool. It's incredible. So I'm like, okay, I need to go to San Francisco because it would be cool just to explore that city. I've never been there. But at least I feel like I got like the coolest tour of 100%. San Francisco, flying over the Golden Gate. I really want to go to Alcatraz. I'm sure it's like most tourist place where it's maybe disappointing.
It's worth it.
Is it worth it?
Don't say that. No, it's worth it. A lot
really?
of the touristy things you do here in the Bay are actually just awesome, and local
really?
To them too. Yeah,
I really want to do Alcatraz.
Cheesy, it's cool.
We had friends do it recently. Like I think they did a night tour, which sounded like super cool.
It's even better on Halloween.
Ooh, that would be super fun. Yeah, so I want to do that. I guess I'm a little bit jaded because sometimes like we'll travel, my wife and I, and we'll like book a tour, and it's like, oh, this was this horrible idea because it's like you feel like I don't know, there's like a cattle yard where they're just like shuffling people through.
I think you would love it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to check it out. Jess, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for inspiring not just young women, but I'm sure there's just all sorts of people out there that are able to consume your content and feel inspired. Thank you for taking the time. To our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Helicopter Podcast. Big shout out to, of course, our friends at MHM Publishing and at Vertical Helicasts. Jess, I don't know if you plan on it this year. Are you going to go to HAI in Anaheim?
I should. Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's like right there.
I feel like you need to go. It's a great show. If you're a helicopter person, HI is great. I think if I'm talking about HI in this show, it's probably going to be past. So I'm not going to talk about what booth we are, but hopefully I saw you at HI because this might happen after HI, but hopefully I saw you there, Jess. That'd be super cool. And again, to our listeners, just thanks for making it possible. Have a good day. Thanks, Jess.
Alrighty.
Hey, podcast listeners. My name is Halsey Schider, and I'm the principal broker and owner of Celicopter. Celicopter is a new age, data-driven, helicopter-specific sales brokerage, bringing helicopter listings to new heights. At Celicopter, we utilize digital positioning, paid advertising, and our large network of industry professionals to move your helicopter quickly and efficiently. Unsure the value of your helicopter? Lucky for you, Celicopter offers a complimentary market evaluation. All you have to do is contact the team today. Are you ready to take your helicopter listing from Mayday to payday? Easy. Fill out the contact information below, and a Celicopter pilot agent will reach out shortly. Celicopter. List it, sell it, done.